With the book style foldables, you get a mini tablet screen that folds down small enough to fit into your pocket, but they're really expensive. But should you get the folding mini tablet like the Galaxy Z Fold 6, or are you better off getting a beefy premium slab like the S24 Ultra? What are the benefits or compromises of using one over the other, and have foldables caught up with proper flagships yet? There are quite a few answers to unpack, but thankfully that's why I'm here. I'm Cam Bunton, this is Trusted Reviews, let's dive in. Now, it may seem like an odd statement, but actually, when it comes to design, the biggest of these two phones is also the smallest, and the easiest to carry around and use one-handed. And that's chiefly why I find folding phones so compelling. Open into its full size, it's pretty huge, but once you fold it up for stowing in a pocket or using one-handed, it's just not as fatiguing and doesn't stretch the grip or your pocket as much as the S24 Ultra, which we all know is a bit of a wide boy. That's not helped, of course, by the fact that the corners are so right-angled and sharp, often digging into the palm and causing discomfort. So despite it seeming like it should be the opposite way around, the Z Fold 6 is the one I found the most comfortable to use, to hold and to carry around. The other advantage worth considering from a durability standpoint is that the main display is always tucked away on the inside, away from your keys, grit, dust, and any other stuff in your bag or pocket that scratches the screen up. Otherwise, Samsung has done a lot of work over the past few years to improve the durability of these folding smartphones, culminating in this sturdy feeling aluminium edged device here. Despite that, it's safe to assume that the S24 Ultra is still, generally speaking, a more durable device. The external glass is tougher than the glass on the cover screen of the Z Fold, and the very fact that it has no hinge means the frame is sturdier. Not to mention, it's built from titanium, not aluminium. There's also the fact that it's got dust and water resistance, where the Fold is only really resistant to water. Now, most of the benefits and the compromises of having a big folding display are pretty obvious. The bigger panel just means having a bigger canvas for whatever app you're using. Even horizontal or vertical video looks much larger and is more immersive, despite the quite heavy letterboxing that comes from having that almost square display. That, of course, also means that when you're using it as a camera monitor for taking photos, the larger size means it's easier to frame and set up the shot. It also means multitasking is easier, offering the ability to have two large vertical apps running side by side on the display at the same time. You can't really do that with the S24 Ultra. There are compromises though, of course there are. One of those is the fact that because this is a flexible display, it's got a plastic-based film over the top as a protective layer for the flexible panel. Now, as good as they've now become, that plastic is no match for any glass in terms of optical clarity. And because it's a lot less resistant to fingerprint oils and is quite reflective, even compared to any ordinary glass phone, it gets really smeary and covered in fingerprints. But the Galaxy S24 Ultra display isn't an ordinary glass phone. It's got incredible anti-reflective properties. It's so good, it doesn't matter what condition you're in, it will always be the most clear display. It makes a difference in bright daylight, of course, but even indoors in your average lighting conditions in your home or your office, that ability to cut out glare and reflections means it's more easily visible. And that means the display brightness doesn't have to be that high in order to be seen clearly. As a side note, it's also much sharper when you enable the full Quad HD Plus resolution, boasting more than 500 pixels per inch, where the Fold reaches 374. You might not be able to see the individual pixels, but when looking at fine lines and curves around small icons, there's definitely a sense that the Ultra is crispier. However, what you do get from that large folding display is a lot of versatility. And that's why these big folding devices have their appeal among a relatively small niche of phone buyers. Yes, it's bigger so you can see more and you can run things side by side, but there's more to it. For instance, having it half folded like a little laptop means you can watch videos hands-free if you want to. You also have the option to have the bottom half act as a little trackpad for navigating around apps that are in that top half of the screen. Similarly, having the large canvas is great for people who like using the S Pen because it's so much easier to write and draw when there's more space to do it in. And let's not forget being able to use that cover display as a camera monitor so that you can use the better external cameras for selfies, which leads us nicely there to cameras. And just like with the display quality, there's a sense that when looking at the results side by side, there's a little bit more quality and refinement from the results that come from the S24 Ultra. Both have ultra-wide primary and zoom cameras, and if we were just comparing results from the primary camera, there wouldn't be that much to separate them. I did feel like most of the time there was ever so slightly better processing of colour and detail, in that greens and blues were a tiny bit less oversaturated and unrealistic, but there was the tiniest bit less noise too. Subtle textures were a bit cleaner and crisper. It also didn't struggle with lens flare as much when there was a bright source of light nearby. But those differences become more clear when looking at the results from the ultra-wide and the zoom cameras. The ultra-wide results were cleaner, again just slightly, but it was noticeable, particularly when looking towards the edges of the photos or at small shadowed objects in various scenes. The biggest difference is in the zoom abilities. That 5x optical zoom camera means that when you go over the 3x zoom mark, the pictures are much sharper. Like it's not even close. The lines are crisper and there's nowhere near as much noise when using that zoom on the Ultra. The Fold sometimes gave me quite soft, not in focus images when using that zoom function too, and that could be part down to the fact that the sensor isn't as pixel rich as the 5x camera on the Ultra. And it's a similar feeling I get when testing their respective night modes when the light levels drop. Images generally look very similar across both phones, but the Ultra does tend to do less of that green tinting that you see on the Z Fold and processes the more complex textures a little cleaner. Now if you want the best all-round camera experience, the Fold still has a little way to go before it can completely match the Ultra, but at the same time it held its own pretty well, to the point where if all you're doing is sharing photos on social media or sending them in messages to family who will inevitably only ever look at them on a small phone screen, I don't think anyone would necessarily notice any huge issues. But let's move on. Now both of these phones have the same processor inside, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So it's no real surprise that in general everyday usage, they both feel fast, smooth and cope with even the most demanding games and benchmarks without any real trouble. In our tests it was actually the Fold that was a bit more stable on the extreme benchmark testing, but they both hit really high performance marks. So it's not an area that I think matters all that much in terms of this comparison. Battery life, however, definitely is. The Ultra lasts a lot longer on a full charge compared to the Fold, and that's no real surprise. It's got a 5000 mAh battery where the Fold only has a 4400 mAh battery, and that translates to an extra couple of hours of actual usage on a full charge. My own fairly light average use case, it's the difference between finishing the day between 40 and 50% on the Ultra versus 30 to 35% on the Fold, after using about 3 or 4 hours of screen time throughout the day and also testing cameras and video capture. For heavier users, it's the difference between needing to carry a battery pack in case the Fold battery dies too soon and not needing one at all. So in the end, there's clearly appeal in this form factor of having this big foldable device. It enables a lot of versatility that rigid smartphones just can't. However, there's still some way to go before it has no compromises versus that regular phone. The displays aren't quite as good, and neither are the cameras or the battery life. Plus, it's far more expensive, and the Ultra itself isn't exactly cheap. Given that price tag, you'd expect it to outperform the Ultra, but it just doesn't, and so it doesn't feel like great value for money. So if I was spending my own money, I would buy the Ultra. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, or you can get me on social media. I'm at Cam Bunton. If you did like this video, please do hit that thumbs up, subscribe and tap the notification bell, and I'll see you again in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.